Bob Cicherillo, promoter of the British Grand Prix. Tell us about the return of the British Grand Prix in 2020.
Giles, I would love to tell you all about it. Unfortunately, I can't get there. So
No!
All year I haven't been to my own shows. So my partner Ian's been pretty much running the show all year. Can't get to Europe. I got a show in Canada. Can't get to Canada. Supposed to be in Romania. Actually, can't get to Romania. So It's all on lockdown and craziness. And you can't get a straight answer from the airlines or the countries of what exactly the protocol is. So if you do get out of the country, you're completely taking your chances. You might get stuck there for 2 weeks in quarantine. You may get stuck when you come back here for another 2 weeks of quarantine. So It's a nut house, man.
And obviously we've got the Olympia in just a few weeks, so we've got to be really careful, I suppose, with all sorts of travel.
Yeah, and that's the more important thing, obviously. But, I've got other shows here, of course, that I do, like our national championships. And, we've had the Chicago Pro. We've had the Tampa Pro. Of course, they're all different, cities and stuff where they're supposed to be. But so the promoters have done a hell of a job, at least on this side of the pond, of, doing everything that they can do for these athletes and giving them an opportunity to qualify, because this Olympia is shaking up to be one of the best in history.
Oh, 100%. Okay, well, obviously the British Grand Prix, last year you and your partner Ian managed to bring it back. It was a huge success because there was 7 years where we had no British Grand Prix, and you managed to bring that back. You were at that one, weren't you?
Oh, yeah, it was huge. We decided we wanted to bring it back. We wanted to restore the prestige to it. We had a great lineup. So this year was a little challenging, of course, where we had to just keep moving shows out. And Ian's done a great job of that. So, hats off to my partner. He's done a great job, and he's had to do it all alone. He's learning quick. So we've got it coming back, and we've got a good lineup scheduled. So all the favorites will be there. I mean, they all want that prestigious title, and hopefully that's what we've instilled, is that, this is the biggest title in the UK, and people, they want it. They want their name on that history-making event.
I think it's going to be. I think it's been obviously headlined as a bit of a battle of the Brits. I mean, we've got last year's runner-up Samson Dowder, who's obviously been to hell and back this year trying to qualify for the Olympia. He's looking to really secure the win. We have Jamie the Giant, who made his pro debut in Alicante, took 9th place. I mean, he's 6'5", a shade under 300 pounds. Who are you looking forward to seeing out of any of the competitors? Who are you most rooting for?
Well, Jamie the Giant is awesome. I love him. He turned pro at our show. He's huge. I mean, the guy is absolutely he's a wall, So it's interesting to see him because, listen, it's very hard for a guy that height to compete in bodybuilding, but he's getting there. And once he gets over 300 pounds, look out. He's going to be a force. But it's hard not to root for Samson just because of what he's gone through this year. Now, some of it I wouldn't have really advised if I was running his camp. I'm not so sure I would have done the whole thing to Korea and all that, and trying to get to the Olympia. But and hopefully these guys can get to the Olympia. That's the other thing. You got James Hollinghead out there, who's won and qualified. Nathan, I'm not quite sure where he's at right now. I know he's had his hands full with his gym and shutdowns and all that. So we lost Luke obviously early in the year, so that was a big hit. Not only to bodybuilding as a whole, but certainly to the UK bodybuilding scene, as he was intricate to it. Yeah. So you've got some good players out there, but your heart's got to go with Samson. I mean, I'd love to see him nail it, and I'd love to see him hopefully get to the Olympia if it's possible.
I mean, we have Samson, but obviously we have the winner of the Alicante Pro, James Hollinshead, who's made significant improvements in the last year. I mean, him and Samson were always neck and neck. I mean, it was a clear 1st and 5th in Alicante. So James Hollinshead is already qualified for the Olympia. So do you think he's extra confident going into this one?
He should be. I mean, James Hollinshead is very underrated. People don't know a lot about him. They haven't seen a whole lot of him. But it seems like he's come into his own. He had a couple of mess-ups last year, in his final hours which took him back a notch or two. But he's got it figured out, and he carries a lot of muscle. He can easily stand in that lineup. But he may be one of those guys, Giles, when we do our dark horse picks, that I wouldn't mind putting in that position, that this guy may break a few hearts, en route to a top 10 finish.
At the Olympia?
At the Olympia.
Wow.
You heard it here.
Oh, here we go. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, so James really is. I mean, he has to be gunning for a second win. Going into the Olympia, it takes a lot of guts, I think, to once someone's qualified to then go and do another show. That shows real confidence in his ability to improve from Alicante. And obviously that's huge momentum going into the Olympia with 2 wins.
Well, some people are better off competing more often. I'm not so sure that a lot of guys in the old days used to compete once a year, maybe twice.
Yeah.
The problem with that is you don't have a lot. First of all, you get out of shape too much, and it's harder to come back every time. As you get older, other obstacles, life gets in the way. So for somebody like James, I mean, it may be a better deal to compete, stay in close to contest shape, and all he'll do is get better as he goes. So if I'm running I got him going in the British, and then I got him going right to the. We're within 6 weeks of the Olympia, so I would just carry that conditioning. I'd be even sharper. And all eggs in the basket for the Olympia, but he could be a guy to upset. And again, I think he will place in the top 10. And listen, he could be on the door of the top 6 if some people don't do their homework right. You got to watch a guy like this coming.
Yeah, he's complete. He's 270 shredded. I mean, he's lacking nothing. He's got the density of like a Branch Warren, or he's got that condition, the thickness, the roundness. Oh, so you're saying James Hollinshead as a dark horse for the Olympia. What about a dark horse for the British Grand Prix in Mark Hector, who took 7th in Alicante 2 weeks ago?
That's a good pick. He's a good pick. Good young guy coming up. He doesn't have the muscle maturity of a James Hollinshead, but he can hold his own. He'll hang in there. But Hollinshead, really, if he goes in, I assuming he will be the man to beat. I mean, he'll be hard to beat. Samson could beat him, but he'd have to nail the conditioning, because there's a mile difference right now between conditioning that Samson's been able to achieve and what James is able to bring. So Samson's got a more pleasing physique. So if he nails it, you got a competition.
And we have French superstar Florian Poisson, prepped by Patrick Tour. It was a last-minute decision, him coming in. I'm very excited to see him. You've got a pro debut from a guy from Denmark called Patrick Johnston. Fantastic new pro. Okay, Bob, a bit of a British Grand Prix targeted question directly to you. Why did you not do the 2002 British Grand Prix?
Well, good question. It wasn't in the cards. I mean, I competed 3 times if you count the Olympia in 2002, taking a runner-up to Marcus Rule at the Night of the Champions and a runner-up to Darren Charles at the Southwest USA Pro Show, Southwest Pro as it would have been back then. So, I didn't want to spread myself too thin. Yeah. And once I qualified and then took a second to the Marcus, the Olympia was the goal. So there was no plans for me to actually hit any other show. The goal was to win the Night of the Champions and then go into the Olympia as a winner. But came up just short of that when you got Marcus Rule standing next to you at 275 pounds. This beast.
Yeah.
He decided he hits his all-time best conditioning that show.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people thought those photos were photoshopped, I think, when they saw the picture of Marcus. But he was a human Photoshop that year, wasn't he?
The guy's a cartoon. I mean, how do you beat that?
Yeah. And also something very significant about that 2002 British Grand Prix was that was Dexter Jackson's first ever pro win.
Yeah, well, Dexter's lucky I wasn't there, because it wouldn't have been his first win. Listen, in all seriousness, I mean, listen, Dexter's hard, man. I mean, he's a tough guy to beat. And interestingly enough, we're coming full circle. He has proclaimed this Olympia. This is his last show. Like, this is it. He's hanging him up. So he's going to go out on the grand stage, with the standing O and the whole thing. Nothing more fitting from a guy who will probably never be beat in terms of overall wins. I mean, he surpassed Ronnie. He's got the title. He's got an Olympia under his belt. He's got multiple Arnolds. The winningest bodybuilder of all time. Talk about a shoe-in Hall of Famer. Dexter is just, he defies the odds,
Yeah. And it all began at the British Grand Prix in 2002. So here we are 18 years later, and we've got some, like James Hollinshead, Samson Dowda, Florian Poisson, newcomers coming to the show. We got Issa Obeid making a comeback at your show. And obviously we've had huge names like Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, Kevin Levrone, Dexter Jackson, all these huge names that have all won British Grand Prix. So whoever wins next weekend, it's a real feather in their cap to win a show as big as the British Grand Prix.
King Khan, is he going in?
I heard he was thinking about it, but this was when it was originally back in May, I believe.
Right. Yeah, listen, it's been challenging not only for us as promoters, but for the athletes, because these athletes have literally been getting ready for shows that have been moved twice sometimes, and then just canceled. And again, it's not the promoters. Believe me, we, along with the other promoters, have tried everything we can. We got a week out of the Ben Weeder in March. A week. We were 7 days out, and they canceled us.
Yeah.
And there was nothing we were fighting for. We were catching flack, actually, because people were on both sides. We were like, well, you guys should be canceling the show. This is a health hazard, whatever. And then you had the other side giving us praise because we were trying to trudge through and make this happen for the athletes. And so you're kind of torn as a promoter. But how about you're an athlete? I mean, you've competed, Giles. How about you get ready for 12 weeks for a show and then the thing gets canceled or off, and you got to go another 6, 7, 8 weeks to it. I mean, it's craziness. It's crazy.
Well, huge credit to yourself and your partner Ian there for sort of forging ahead by putting the show on, because there's a lot of restrictions, a lot of kind of things you got to go up. You could have just said, look, we'll just cancel it. Let's just have it back next year when things are better. But you didn't. So full credit to you guys for carry on through.
Well, again, as a promoter, you do everything you can. Everything's just always about the money. Trust me, folks. This year has not been about the money. We've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's just nothing you can do about it. The shows that we have put on, listen, you're going to break even at best, but you do it for the love of the sport. You do it for the athletes. You do it to carry on. This is our third year with 2Bros, so we weren't going to just take the year off. I mean, and again, Ian's jumped through hoops to put on shows because the restrictions over there where you guys are is absolutely insane. There's areas here that are almost pretty much normal, but I mean, the way you guys got this lockdown, I mean, some of these shows, you got 50 people that you can have in there. That's including the staff and everybody else. It's craziness. We've had to split shows in half, one on one weekend and one on another just to accommodate. So trust me, folks, it's not a greedy promoter. You guys, everybody's just in it for the money. I love when I hear stuff like that because it's like, man, you guys have no clue how much money you got to go in. Listen, you got sanction fees that you got to pay that you can't get back. You got prize money that you've got to put up. If it's an amateur show, you've got money you've got to dish out to secure venues. Some of these venues just aren't giving you your money back. They want to obviously give you the time. They're going to give you credit. But, you don't get your check for $20,000 back. So you're just out at that point hoping to find a date that works, or it's next year. But, that money, that's in their pocket. They're not going to give it back to you. Can
you tell us what pro categories are going to be at the British Grand Prix?
I cannot.
Why? Have you not decided yet?
Yeah. That's everything. Again, everything's up in the air. It depends on, a lot of it just depends on what's available to us in terms of, what you're going to dish out for sanction fees, prize money. Again, it's you hate to last minute everything, but by the same token, you don't know what you're going to get. And it's very difficult to pull people from other areas because, again, in the UK especially, you guys are kind of locked down. So getting people in from other countries is very difficult right now. And if they can get in, they don't know if they can get out. It's a whole problem,
Okay, Bob. Well, I think we're all really excited for because like I said, it's been a very challenging year for everyone, the sport, for all the promoters such as yourself, the athletes. But somehow, the shows have still gone ahead. The athletes have still managed to train and unbelievably improve, which I'm really shocked by. And I just think it's full credit to the industry and the kind of true grit that's behind the spirit of bodybuilding and the pro scene.
Well, all roads to the Olympia, my friend. Like I say, listen, we've been doing this for since 1965. Okay, so for 55, it'll be 56 Olympia. Listen, it was never even a question. Once Jake Wood got in there, because I'm not so sure that if this was still under AMI control, that this show would have seen the light of day this year.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It's a whole different animal. They would have canceled this thing from day one. You never would have seen it this year. Thank God for Jake Wood. Comes in, purchases the Olympia. He's got a passion like no other. He says, look, this show is going to go on, whether we got an audience of zero, whether it's completely a pay-per-view, made for TV production, or if we just got the athletes, the Olympia will go on. And that's exactly what we've got. Dan Solomon, my good friend and his crew, pulling out all the stops. It's been a lot of work this year to you got to really shuck and jive, man. I mean, they keep changing. The goalposts keep moving. So you got to keep making changes to the structure of everything. You can't really have a giant expo these days. So we've had to make for provisions for that, where they've got kind of a VIP expo thing, which is very cool. And it's all attached. So those going to the Olympia, it's all under one roof. First time since we've been at the Mandalay Bay years ago. So very convenient. You don't have to go anywhere. You get into Planet Hollywood. Zappos Theater's right there. Expo's right there. So we're really looking forward to, again, it's going to be a unique Olympia. But we've got all the players. We've actually qualified more people for the Olympia this year than any other year in history. So even though the restrictions have had it's crazy. Yeah. So even though the restrictions have had their say in there, and what you think like, okay, wow, like are we going to have enough people? No, we've got more people, so that's good.
And of course, it's a nice early chance for people to qualify for next year for the Olympia at the British Grand Prix.
I got to be honest, and this is something I'll definitely bring up in future meetings, but I don't know if I would ever qualify anybody. Like I'd love to see a restructuring.
Me too.
Where the Olympia stays kind of later in the year. Like I actually, it used to be in October years ago. Actually, when I did that, and I believe it was in October, and slowly it kind of crept up into September. Now, some of that's because of availability. Sometimes it slides a week or two, but over the years it's kind of crept up into towards the beginning of September. I've had this thing in October and November all the time. Number one. Two, much like the World Series, soccer, again, pick your sport, football. Like there's no games after the Super Bowl. Like that's it. The World Series just ended here. I know you guys aren't big baseball fans, but the World Series just ended. There's not games next week. Listen, that's it. That's the big thing. When we have our Olympia, I'd like to see that end right there. Like that's it. Now you go to off-season mode, but there is no qualifying for next year. Like I don't like that whole concept. I like everything for this year. You qualify for this year's Olympia.
Yes.
And then the Olympia, like once it's done, it's done. Like I said, there is no early qualification. Listen, we want these superstars out there promoting the shows. We want them, putting butts in the seats. But I say once you round the corner, next year is next year. When we turn this page to 2021, now everything's for the Olympia for that year. So, just something that's in my head again. It's something I'd like to bring up with the Pro League. Tyler, Jim Mannion, Big Steve, all the players, Sandy. I think it's something that we need to look at, though, and kind of restructure a little bit. But again, just my own 2 cents. But one good thing about Jim and Tyler in the Pro League is they've always given me a voice and they've always given me an ear to bring these things up. And if it makes sense, we make the change.
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement with that. I think this should be a qualifier for this year's Olympia. I think all the qualifiers should lead up to that Olympia at the end of the year. And like you said, then it should shut it down until the Arnold Classic in 2021, next year. So, Bob Chick, promoter of the British Grand Prix, thank you so much for coming on to the Pro League Hype Show. We appreciate your time as always and your insights and your obviously valued opinion. And good luck with the show. And look forward to seeing many more shows for you in 2021, COVID-free.
Giles, best luck along the way, and hopefully we'll see you in T-minus 6 weeks, my friend.
You'll see me there. Thank you, Bob.